At this time of grief, we come together as family and friends from near and far to reflect on the memory, to reflect on the life, to reflect on the legacy of Bennett, Joan, Harmony, Nieberg. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever new message of God's nearness. It tells of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. Esa einai el heharim, me'ayin yavo Isri. Isri me'im Adonai osei shamayim va'aretz. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. Can there be a lament greater than for a young life lost to tragedy? In the depths of grief and despair, O God, keep us strong so that we might help the stricken to regain strength. Help us to support them as they ask the inevitable questions. We grieve for what might have been, for joys unrealized, for tasks undone, for hopes thwarted, for growth arrested, for love blighted, for challenges unmet. Help us, O God, to bring consolation to the bereaved. Help us to raise them up from the depths of sorrow, slowly and lovingly. Help us to lead them from a night of desolation to the dawn of another day. Then the memory of their beloved Bennett will be able to return gently, peacefully to their hearts. May their memory live among them, allaying their grief, instructing them in the ways of living, and helping them to find meaning in the mystery of eternal life. God be with them and teach us to be with them too. The great Jewish poet, Chaim Nachman Bialik, has written, "After my death, mourn me thus. There was a person, and see, they are no more. Before their time, their life was ended, and the song of their life was broken. Oh, they had one more melody. And now that melody is lost forever. Lost forever. We come here today as family and friends to reflect upon the melody of Bennett's life and to hear refrains from that beautiful song that was sung and struck the parts of our hearts that made us all a little bit wholer. In the obituary, it says, Bennett Joan Harmony Nieberg was a queer Jewish poet. They were my nibbling. I had the joy of officiating at their baby naming in Stamford, Connecticut, on their beautiful deck 24 years ago, in the week after my younger son's birth. And we gave Bennett the Hebrew name Shira Liat. You are my song. This is the song that we are listening to today. This is the song that we treasured listening to in the time we knew Bennett. And this is the song, the refrain that will come back to our hearts and minds and souls in the days and weeks and months going forward. After the baby naming, Bennett grew up, and I was delighted to be called up for an aliyah at the Torah as they chanted from the scroll at their B'nai Mitzvah 13 years later in Scarsdale, New York. And now it's with great sorrow that I share these words at Bennett's funeral. Bennett was a queer Jewish poet, says the obit. Queer we know for their fierce advocacy for LGBTQ rights and going to Denver's gay pride parade together as a family, with Bennett wearing a huge smile and tiny pasties. A poet we know from attending speech and debate competitions at Cherry Creek High School. Thank you, Scott. And poetry slams at Denver's Mercury Cafe, and videos of their gripping performances as a Master of Fine Arts student at Virginia Commonwealth University. But it is the middle term that I want to expand upon. Jewish. Hints that one can find in their intense poetry, and questions that I received in auto-corrected texts from Bennett. Hi, Uncle Elliot. I need some rabbit advice. Texts asking me about Jewish observance from Denver to Boulder to Richmond. Texts asking about the accuracy of transliteration or Yiddish translation of poetry. Texts asking for direction on how to network with the Richmond Jewish community as part of an interfaith vigil for Black Lives Matter. And most recently, Uncle Elliot, can you help me find a non-Zionist Haggadah for a social justice Seder as they advocated for Palestinian statehood and an end to the occupation? Judaism wasn't just a ritual for Bennett. They heeded the prophetic call for justice. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice, you shall pursue. The repetition of the word justice stands for non-binary justice for all. Black and white, straight and gay, Israeli and Palestinian, indigenous and immigrant, old and young. Bennett was into politics, wanting to change the world. And I remember going as a family to Bennett's first Democrat caucus in Greenwood Village, here where we live, where we split the family with Bennett and I voting for Bernie and the rest for Hillary. I remember Bennett beaming as they advocated for Bernie, another idealistic, passionate Jew who stood for justice for all. For Bennett was a queer Jewish poet who made this Uncle Rabbi very proud. The song of their life was broken, but their memory lives on forever. And now we have the chance to share parts of that melody from near and far, to lift up our neshamas, to lift up our spirits, and to hear the refrain of Bennett's life. I'd like to call up at this time Photo Dude, followed by Kellyanne. First, okay, sure.
Thank you. Thank you, baby. I just want to take a look around at all the people that love Bennett and love us. And thank you for coming, whether virtually or IRL in this time of COVID. I know a lot of people wanted to be here that couldn't be here, but they are celebrating the beautiful life of Bennett. As most of you know, Bennett was non-binary. I mention this so that there's no confusion as I go on with my remarks, that when referring to Bennett, we use the pronouns they and them. Owen and I have been so incredibly proud of them as they made their way through life, through college, then grad school. They submitted their poems to a variety of journals and co-founded with their amazing friend Wheeler the journal What Are Birds? They published What Are Birds for other writers to showcase their works and rewarded them for their artistry. Passion is a trait that all my 3 children share. Please forgive the inelegance of my writing. I feel like this is the most important thing I will ever have to write in my life. And I've never been very good at expressing myself. All 3 of my children are great at expressing themselves and are amazing writers because of it. Bennett loved birds. They tattooed their whole body with birds. I wonder, were they chasing flight, not recognizing that they were already soaring? Like all of our children, Bennett was complex. For a long time, Bennett has not let me in on the innermost aspects of their life. This never made me bitter. For some people, it's part of growing up, as I think it was for them. I'm sorry, I lost my place, but I know you guys are okay with that. So it's sort of like a repeat of that 2- and 3-year-old child trying to separate from us. And I was good with that. After I leave you, I'm sure I'll think of 1,000 things I could have said or said better or differently to impress upon you how special, unique, and important Bennett was, so that no one will ever forget them. But of course, all of you who knew Bennett know they are unforgettable. Bennett, I can't comprehend that I'll never see you or hear your voice or touch you again. If anyone can understand your suffering, it is I. You were doing so many wonderful things for your community and your students. Your passion was unparalleled. You cared so deeply about tikkun olam, repairing the world. I always felt privileged to be your mother and watch you grow into the beautiful person you became. You may not have realized it, but you are and were loved by so many incredible people. I just wish you could have reached out to any one of them. We will forever be broken by the loss of you in our lives. Your ability to reach great highs was only rivaled by the depths of the lows that you experienced. I will choose to remember the amazing things that you brought to us and this world, and will forever celebrate the unique and valuable life that was yours, that we were blessed to share and witness. I will never stop thinking of you and wishing that you were still here.
My name is Wheeler. I didn't think I would get taken up on my bluff as photo dude, but I'm the dude in the photos. I didn't come here with a plan to Denver or this stage. I just knew that I had to be here. I knew Bennett through poetry and because of poetry, and I still know Bennett through poetry. Since their passing, I've just spent a lot of time on Google where I have the mass anthology of their work, A Living Elegy, which there are plans for doing something with and making public, but I don't know when that will happen. All I want to do here today is read a few poems for you all by them and by a poet whose work they loved. I'm going to start by reading Boot Theory by Richard Sykin. Boot Theory. A man walks into a bar and says, "Take my wife, please." So you do. You take her out into the rain and you fall in love with her and she leaves you and you're desolate. You're on your back in your undershirt, a broken man on an ugly bedspread, staring at the water stains on the ceiling. And you can hear the man in the apartment above you taking off his shoes. You hear the first boot hit the floor and you're looking up. You're waiting because you thought it would follow. You thought there would be some logic, perhaps something to pull it all together, but here we are in the weeds again. Here we are in the bowels of the thing. Your world doesn't make sense. And then the second boot falls, and then a third, a fourth, a fifth. A man walks into a bar and says, "Take my wife, please." But you take him instead. You take him home and you make him a cheese sandwich and you try to get his shoes off, but he kicks you and he keeps kicking you. You swallow a bottle of sleeping pills, but they don't work. Boots continue to fall to the floor in the apartment above you. You go to work the next day pretending nothing happened. Your coworkers ask if everything's okay and you tell them you're just tired and you're just trying to smile and they're trying to smile. A man walks into a bar, you this time, and says, "Make it a double." A man walks into a bar, you this time, and says, "Walk a mile in my shoes." A man walks into a convenience store, still you, saying, "I only wanted something simple, something generic." But the clerk tells you to buy something or get out. A man takes his sadness down to the river and throws it in the river, but then he's still left with the river. A man takes his sadness and throws it away, but then he's still left with his hands. A vast majority of the time, me and Bennett were in each other's life as poets. We were tricking each other into love in abstraction and thinking that the world would love it too. So I'm going to read their poem after Richard Sykin and then one other. Stop Me If You've Heard This One, after Richard Sykin by Bennett Nieberg. A man walks into a bar and says he wants to be a man, so he is. A man walks into a bar and says, "You are my beloved. Let me show you the life we built." But you do not recognize him as a man. So you take his soft jaw into your palm and he waits for the punchline. A man walks into a bar and looks like your lover, but he is not your lover. So you have another drink. A man walks in terrified of men, not sure he is one, and you want to take him home because he is your lover, to strip him throat to groin, but it's not what you imagined. So he traces the outlines of bodies, traces the shape he wants to be. "I'll tell you everything," he says. "I'll turn the lights off. We can pretend we've only just met. I would build a life with you in the drought. Let me put my body on the line for love. I would do it all again, be in that cold room, turning the heat between our bodies, turning the car home. Let it happen. Say goodnight. Say you'll love the new shape I'll leave in the outline of light." And then I will read one more poem by Bennett. It is called Lemon Country. It was their first small piece of prose they showed to me, and they were like, "I did it. I wrote a prose." We were on a boat that was leaving shore soon. I forgot my umbrella and it was yellowing in the sun. The man in charge of the maps would not give me a language, and you were leaving so soon. I never know the right thing to do. I ran cobblestone and tripped, and for a while everything was icebox cold, and I knew you were going. A can of sun-dried tomatoes under my arm. For a while I worried you had already gone. I spent so long gone and returned without a language. There was a scooter, blue, and parked, and I never know what to do in these situations. Sure enough, the boat was leaving. I called out something. You stood there, staring at the shore, blinking.
My name is Killian. I met Bennett in 2019. They came to visit Richmond to check out the VCU MFA program. And the first thing they did when they got into the program was they found me on Facebook and reached out to me. And then we had a picnic when they were in town. My first impression of them was, this kid's kind of weird. But I think I like them. And we stayed in contact. And then they came to VCU. And while my first year at VCU was sort of miserable because I had a hard time making friends, as soon as I was friends with Bennett, they brought me into their world. And they brought me into their community and all the people in Richmond that they immediately were able to latch onto. And just draw into their life. They're so charismatic, right? And my memories of Bennett circle around their humor because they had such a great sense of humor. Yes. And we spent so much time just talking about memes and the literary aspect of memes. And we decided we wanted to eventually teach a literature class on memes and name it something like New Digital Communication or something like that, you know. I had been trying to write something to put on Facebook or, you know, try and express my love for them. But that's hard. You said how hard it was, and I can't explain it better. And so I'm just going to read some of that, and then I'm going to read one poem by them. So I was posting a video of one of their slam poetry events, and I wrote, though we didn't know each other at the time of this video, this is the essence of Bennett I remember. Yeah, shit sucks and nothing makes sense. But sometimes things are so absurdly bad, you just have to laugh. And that kind of is what memes were to us. I can't believe I'm at a funeral talking about memes. But I mean, they came into my life and changed everything. They're the bravest person I've ever met. And I think some of that bravery lives inside me forever. Not just my heart and not just my mind or memory, but like the entirety of my body is imbued with what Bennett brought to my world and the ability to stand up for those who could not stand up for themselves or who needed help. Because, I mean, Bennett was so ready to give. I remember late one night, I was in like such physical pain, and they left a protest to come drive me to the ER. It was a kidney stone. And so, like, you know, while it felt so painful and like an emergency, you know, they came and they took care of me, and they're like, dude, you need to drink more water. And, you know, Bennett made us all laugh. You know, they brought such joy and such levity to our lives. And, you know, like we've talked about their activism and how how powerful they were when it came to just advocating for others in their communities. You know, they arrived in Richmond, and in less than a year, you know, they were involved in several different organizations, you know, the bail fund and the tenant union, and just like I have a t-shirt made by them that they used to gather funds for Black trans lives. And I mean, Bennett didn't have a sense of the impossible. When the world seems to be falling around us, why should we accept an imperfect world? Why hold back? Why not push the boundaries of what's considered possible? Something I think about is how often I heard Bennett say, okay, but what if? So, okay, someone you love dies. But what if you just carry a little of them on your shoulder, you know, and sometimes you can hear their laughter. God, sorry. I have like a million different notes of like thoughts. I suppose I'll go next to the poem I wanted to read. This is the last poem they sent me, and in their message they said, I'm not sure about this last line. And I read the poem and I said, no, that's perfect. I mean, they're such a phenomenal poet. You've already heard some of their work, and you know, hang on, this is kind of a sad one. But the title is To Love Someone Long Term is to Attend 1,000 Funerals. People are too exhausted, you say, to be human. You say this any longer. We drag our heavy bodies. People are outside in a long field. The kudzu is infectious. It leaches power out of the lines. Sometimes we aren't given a past life. We could have been dancers, you tell me, smoking in the trunk of your car, but nobody had the shoes. It goes on. The punchline is that Sisyphus doesn't know this time. The punchline is every morning he steps out of his old hatchback and clocks in. People don't recognize themselves anymore. The war is over. Still, we are moving slower than ever. Would you rather have to remember me each day? And what about that little barn door, that old red thing, and how the cows came lapping at the fence line, and those noses we decided were like dogs? I'm going to keep you right here, you told me, and pointed to the back of your head. The people we used to be, we so badly wanted. To love someone long term is to attend 1,000 funerals. Are we going to be in love when the tomatoes are finished with their ripening? People don't do enough canning, you say. And just like that, the season was fall. So leave our ghosts out of it. I'm digging a hole to the next world. And when I find that hole, I'm going right in and bringing them back. The last thing I want to leave you and leave Bennett with right here is one of my poems that they seem to really get a kick out of. Started with the line, "What a time to be in Texas." And Bennett, what a time to be in Denver. Thank you all. Ooh, there's a ledge.
Shalom Aleichem. My name is Hannah. My pronouns are also they, them. I didn't initially have plans to speak today until you said such lovely things about how Bennett was as a Jew. And pretty much every text you just cited was something that we had organized together. I met Bennett about a year and a half ago in the street outside my apartment while they were walking Winston. And one of the first time we bonded, the first time we organized the first of many, many things together was a prayer service for us to do at a vigil that had been organized for the birthday of Breonna Taylor. And we organized that together. They sent many passionate emails to the synagogues in the area and were so angry about the response they got back from a local temple. The vigil was scheduled for a Friday, and they said, well, we're Jewish. We do our Sabbath on Fridays. And they were like, what the fuck does that mean? I'm Jewish. I introduced myself as a Jew. I said shalom. We did that together. That was also the first time we nearly got into a car accident together. Again, one of many. We've celebrated every holiday together for the last year and a half. This past Yom Kippur, they made a point of texting me to tell me that they were eating a bacon sandwich. The first time we had dinner together was when was for a Shabbat dinner. They forgot the prayers. I had to say them. And that was what we did together. We didn't have a minyan for our prayer service. Trying to scrape 10 Jews together in Richmond is quite a feat. Not always possible, but we held each other and we kept each other. We had many, many conversations about their own Jewish identity and their own complicated feelings about Jewish spirituality, and holding the what I think of as a very unique American reform experience of not really knowing a whole lot, but trying your best. And I remember at another vigil that we were at, another march that we were at together, there was a Christian's prayer service happening also for Breonna Taylor. And we both immediately pulled our phones out and started saying Kaddish, and looked at each other and we're like, do you have that up? I have that up. And we did Passover together this past year, and had many, many conversations about what we wanted for the Haggadah that we were going to do. And again, very few of us knew the prayers, lots of Googling things. The last thing that we were going to do together, we were going to do Rosh Hashanah, and they were not feeling well. And they had texted me on Yom Kippur and asked it, and they said that it would feel very important to them to observe it in some way. And we had decided that we were going to do Tashlich together. And at the end of the day, I had done a lot of cooking and was very, very tired. So I told them that I didn't think I would make it. And they told me that was okay. And they told me that they had written down everything that they felt they needed to atone for, and everything they felt that they needed to take time to sit with. And there were apparently flash floods happening in Richmond that day. So they did not make it down to the river. So they burned this piece of paper and almost burned their house down as well. And this was Thursday night. As difficult as it is for me to hold that, I have remembered and been keeping the thought with me that they did manage to find that closure for themselves in a way that was part of their own unique spiritual practice. And that is something that I hold in my heart. And something that I've been carrying around with me this week is my little chai charm so that I can carry their life with me where I go. Baruch Dayan Chramet, may their memory be a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rick. Bennett was my friend. I met Bennett on Tinder this past December, and we met in a park on a Tuesday on December 22nd. I was there on time, and I sat for 30 minutes. I'm grateful that it was only 30 minutes. And then there they were, bounding towards me with their little bouncy, determined gait and their fanny pack. And their little curls, nest of curls, bounce, bounce, bounce. And I hadn't learned yet that Bennett lived 30 minutes late, if you were lucky. They told me about writing vignettes on sadness in their MFA program, about the epistemology of the phrase, the world is your oyster. It is Shakespearean. It is the crude sex joke. And about all the gifts that they were planning to gift to their friends. They were always an amazing gift giver. 3 days later, they invited me over to stop by their house for Jewish Christmas. That's where I met Hannah. They told me there are two things open on Christmas Day. That's Chinese restaurants and that's jails. And Bennett had spent that afternoon posting bonds at a jail to get folks out of there because they understood that prisons and jails do not keep us safe. And I, enamored, asked to bring them a thermos of jasmine tea with some honey in it to warm them up when they got back. 6 days later, we planned our first sleepover and proper date. It's New Year's Eve, romantic. And they asked if I would join them at the jail to hoot, holler, wave, and scream in solidarity with the folks inside, celebrating prisoner resistance. And walking towards the group of folks gathered outside that jail, we held hands for the first time. By the time I had met Bennett, they were already a trained and skilled street medic with the methodical care of a Jewish mother. They were a regular at all the regional Richmond jails for how often they showed up to post bonds with the Richmond Community Bail Fund. They were an albeit tardy, but relentlessly reliable resource at the city courthouse, enduring the cold and rain through the winter to help folks fighting their landlords who were trying to evict them in the dead of winter during a pandemic. And they were stubbornly set on making a mutual aid cafe a reality in Richmond where folks could get free food and services at any time, no matter the setback. And when I say stubborn, I mean they did not give up. They got shit done. Bennett was a powerhouse. They got it done. To love Bennett meant that time spent on mutual days off could be playing cards in the park on their cribbage board, just as much as it could be darting around the city, doing work to keep communities safer and cared for. Being loved by Bennett meant feeling like entirely new futures, beautiful and abundant futures, were never more possible. I want to fight with you. And in classic gay fashion, we were 2 weeks into knowing each other, racking up that 6-day-long date, when they looked at me knowingly and asked, "What are you thinking about?" I told them, "I love you," which is to say, I know I care deeply about you, and I want to fight alongside you. Bennett had the fire, deep core of values, and the humility and curiosity to continue learning and expanding their concept of what it meant for them to live a life in these values. And even more, Bennett understood the importance of laughter and joy in that fight. They can make me crack up with a look. Every night after we had taken a shower, their bouncy curls had been wet and matted, and they would start methodically combing their hair straight back until it had become that slicked back, like greasy salesman calling card that just screams like pyramid scheme. And once they were satisfied, all nice and tight, they'd turn to me, point at their hair. "You want to make a deal? I got deals, deals, deals. You want deals? I got them. Give you a great deal." There was always a lot of knowing Bennett. When they wanted to make me spit take in the middle of brushing my teeth, it was the deal hair. Turn, look, strong wink. And if that failed, it was "them burger," "them burger," which is, they had shown me the remake of The Pink Panther with Steve Martin. I'd encourage you all to watch that clip. And I will always remember and watch Steve Martin in that Pink Panther clip channeling Bennett's spirit. They had that connection. For all the big ways Bennett loved people and community, they were always so good at the small things. Gift giving as a way to say, "I see you. I'm thinking about you. I want you to hold this and know that." On my last trip with Bennett, a road trip up and down the East Coast, they said they wanted to bring back gifts for their dear friends and housemates, Samim and Davy. And of course, Mr. Baby, Wingo Bingo, their dog Winston. For Winston, a new handkerchief. As Mr. Baby will always forever be an icon of gay anxiety. And for Samim and Davy, Bennett knew they wouldn't prefer a bought object. So I watched them pull to the side of a bike trail along the lake in Vermont. The edge of the lake was covered in wishing stones, those like grayish stones. I researched this, basalt, veined with quartz. They taught me to research these things. Bennett carefully combed the beach for 15 minutes. They must have picked up 100 rocks, inspecting them, rolling them in their fingers to assess their shape and smoothness, before selecting 3, one for Samim, one for Davy, and one for themselves to remember. I've had this story in my mind lately. The past couple of days I've been here and in Richmond sitting with friends. So many friends. We all know the vastness of Bennett's community. And I've been exchanging these stories and memories of Bennett with friends, family, strangers, and thinking of how much Bennett would love this exchange of gifts, to see so many people meeting face to face, talking with intention, building relationships, connectedness, and care. Bennett built one of the largest, strangest, most beautiful collection of comrades, lovers, and fighters I've ever seen. And I'm grateful to be sharing this space with you all. Grateful for Bennett's love that brought us together. Bennett was always telling me, quit your job, do nothing all day, spend all day doing what you want. I did quit my job, and I'm around, and I would love to talk, foster connection, and meet.
I'm Davy. I lived with Bennett. I live with Bennett, like we all do. I don't have much to say that's separate from anything anyone else has said, other than sharing what I knew, what I know it was like to be loved by Bennett, which is something like being held by the whole world. And that's how much they loved. And you knew it. Even if there was a tiff, and you knew when there was a tiff. And I'm so grateful for everyone here who held Bennett the way that they hold every single person around them. I know, like Rick said, how happy they would be to see everyone here connecting with one another, and how meaningful that was to them to connect, to look each other in the eye. Sorry. And they knew how much people loved them. As tragic and as dark as it seems, they knew how much they were loved. That was some of the last words we said to each other. I remember my housemates, they said, I have nothing but love in my heart for you. I had this goofy looking grin. And Bennett just went, what? And I told them I love you. They said, I know. I know they knew that everyone here loved them as well.
I just want to say, I know I've said this to a lot of Bennett's friends, and I really mean it. You don't get to choose the family you're born into, but Bennett chose you guys as family. And I really love you for loving Bennett. Thank you.
When I was younger, my siblings and I used to fight incessantly, as siblings do. But when we would, my parents would say to us that we had to stand by each other and we had to support each other because we'd always be siblings. I don't think we understood it at the time. We were usually pretty frustrated when they were saying it. But whether it be flying me out to Virginia to make sure I was okay, or teaching me new skills in their free time, or just texting me, I love you, Bennett looked out for me, and I hope I was able to do the same for them.
First, I want to share what Karen was saying, how deeply we appreciate everybody being here. The love in this room is palpable, and we so deeply appreciate everybody, both here and I know there's some very, very dear loved people that their health didn't allow them to come. We appreciate that they're thinking of Bennett right now. It's going to sound a little paradoxical to say at this moment, but Karen and I always feel so lucky and so blessed. We were gifted with 3 incredible children. And many in the room have known Bennett. Some in the room have known Levi and Finn. If you have not had the opportunity and unbelievable good fortune to know Levi or to know Finn, if you take away anything from today, treat your soul, treat your spirit to getting to meet them and know them. They are amazing human beings, as those of you who may have only known Bennett knew Bennett as. You know, in my grief this week, I was at the temple and a woman had a water bottle. It reminded me of Bennett. In that, I'm going to paraphrase this greatly, but it said, they whispered to Bennett, "You cannot withstand the storm." And Bennett whispered back softly, "I am the storm."
Sorry, just know it to be true.
It is. You've heard from some of these wonderful people, and it gives Karen and I such joy, especially to hear from some of these, 20-something-year-olds that were all so near and dear from Bennett. That, as I was saying a moment ago, this was no ordinary person. This was a person that rocked the world. And I did love how Julia had phrased it, that they were unabashedly proud of them, proud of being themselves and true to themselves, and a fierce advocate and fighter for the injustices of the inequalities of our society. You've heard some of their things, and it was, everything they did with such intensity and such passion. And clearly that was a big part of their lives to fight that. For myself, a few years ago, down at the Merc, which I may see many of you again Sunday night at the candlelight vigil that was organized just spontaneously by fellow poets for Bennett. I once read a poem down at the Merc, and I titled it My Pronouns. I was talking about my children. I just want to read a section that I had written in that poem about Bennett. They are a force to be reckoned with. They shine with the intensity of the sun. And like the sun, they can warm you with their light if you allow them to. Their words can both inspire and move you. But of course, those who have had the good fortune to hear them know the intensity of their spirit. They think quickly, act boldly, and love deeply. They are as beautiful as they are powerful, and those who know them bask in their presence and know they're a witness to something extraordinary. And if you are, or now were lucky enough to know, they will let you come along for the ride. As you hear, people didn't just meet Bennett. People didn't just sort of know Bennett. Bennett shook them to their core in such wonderful, beautiful, positive ways. They were like a bolt of lightning, and they just moved people to the very essence of their being and made them appreciate life and lives and the world more. They were incredibly giving, as you hear, driving friends around, housing people. Just this week and a half ago, they called me. They said, "Daddy, I have a friend who's in an abusive relationship. My friends and I were saving them and protecting them, but in their travels, they need to be put up at a hotel for a couple of nights. I don't have the money. Could you pay for it?" And I, of course, said yes. But I'm sure if they had the money, they would have done it themselves. That's the kind of person that Bennett was, always working to help others. You've heard a little of their poetry and some of the passion in it. Their passion for Black Lives Matter, even to the point that in one particular evening, to protect the protesters, they positioned themselves in a way that ended with 3 police officers pointing their rifles at their head, screaming at them to get on the ground as they pulled them out of the car, and then leaving them handcuffed overnight in a prison, in a jail parking lot. They weren't fazed. They laughed about it, right? As you heard, they were constantly at the bail fund. They were passionately against the concept of imprisoning other humans in any form for any reason, and worked diligently to make sure that people didn't have to stay in jail, especially those that didn't have the funds to allow their own release. They even started talking to me a few months ago that they want to figure out how to buy a house in Richmond that their friends could turn into a homeless shelter so that they could help reduce the amount of homelessness in Richmond. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit for a moment, but it's a good story. I'm not one to believe much in the supernatural, but there's clearly a sense that the power and spirit of Bennett lives on in some mystical and magical ways. My mom died when I was 24. She was everything to my sisters and I. And her dad was the world's premier feather costumer. And I mean that. He did all the costumes for Radio City Music Hall, all the opening acts for the Miss America pageant for years. The world knew that if you needed a feather boa or a feather something, you turned to our grandfather. And ever since my mother's passing, especially my sisters, and I didn't really buy into some of this, but I know it meant a lot to them. And I now, when I finish this story, you'll understand why I now buy into it completely. They'd find feathers in their lives at times of need, times that they were hurting. Suddenly, in the strangest of places, Elise will regale you with stories if you have a chance to talk to her in the next few days about the craziest times that where there should be no bird feather, there was a bird feather. Bennett seemed to have some connection to my mother that I can't explain, something deeply spiritual. When they went to legally change their name, they posed 3 different first names that they asked all of our opinions on to get. And we shared, and they chose Bennett. What I didn't know until after they had finished changing their name was that they said, "Yeah, Dad, I changed my name to Bennett Joan Harmony Nieberg." The Harmony was part of their middle name Karen and I had given them. The Joan nearly floored me and did, in fact, bring me to tears, and I hugged them for it, because that was my mom's name. They chose that on their own. And somehow that relation then led to this mystical element, which is, as you hear, birds became this incredibly important thing to Bennett, covering their body in birds, having their journal, their baby that they had started with Wheeler that was so important to them, be called What Are Birds? And this all leads to what happened this week. We came here to the funeral home to start working with the team here at Feldman to arrange today's service. And we meet this wonderful, wonderful young lady who says to us, her name is Katie, and says to us, you know, I have no idea why, and I'm not really an artist. I don't do this regularly, but I knew today I was going to meet with you and Karen, and for some reason I felt like I had to do some art. I painted something for Bennett. I said, well, what'd you paint? She said, I painted a cardinal. And I think that was Bennett reaching out and saying, my spirit will live on. And trust this young lady, Katie, who was wonderful, and I'm going to reach out to her. And I believe that. We know Bennett is no longer with us, obviously in body. And I know everybody in this room wants their spirit to live on. I know you're going to hold them in their hearts and remember them. Here's what I want to stop with as far as today is, please, please don't just stop there. Read and listen to some poetry. Listen to Bennett's poetry. Listen to some of these young folks' poetry, right? Make it a part of your life. If you stay for a little bit afterwards, Katie put together this wonderful slideshow that includes some of Bennett giving some slam poetry. And in one of them, there's a piece I know I texted to many of you this week called Mirror, right? They said, you, write a poem. Bennett would be telling us today, you're all poets. So let Bennett's memory today maybe make you go home tonight or over this weekend or next week or next month. Write a poem and say that was inspired by the memory of Bennett Nieberg. And I wrote something. And even if it's not beautiful to anybody else, maybe it'll be beautiful to you. Go further, as I said, than just remembering them. Support poets. One of the things, as you hear, is Bennett started a poetry journal called What Are Birds? And it's currently kind of in hiatus. I've urged Wheeler and some of the fellow co-editors of the journal that I hope they please start it up again. And if they do, try to support it. Karen and I vowed to them forever, in perpetuity, we're going to support an annual Bennett Nieberg Poetry Prize through What Are Birds? I hope they need more than just that. So if What Are Birds happens because you love us and our family, I'm sure you'll hear. And nothing would make Bennett's memory, them prouder than that What Are Birds lives on for a long, long time. And maybe most importantly, more than the poetry or anything else, if Bennett wanted something of the people in this room, it's that maybe today inspire you to fight against social injustices. Help a bail fund in your local community or the Richmond Bail Fund that they cared about. Fight like hell against systemic racism. It was one of their deep passions. Fight against it in all forms, especially as it relates to incarceration. Fight against transphobia homophobia, and give your love and support to the queer community. And don't forget whose spirit inspired you to do more, to say more, for each of you to be more, because the words about Bennett Nieberg inspired you today. Please, 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 let Bennett's spirit live on through your actions and your efforts. We hope that in that way, our baby will never truly leave us or be forgotten.
Thank you, Owen, Karen, Levi, friends from here and Richmond, for blessing us with melodies from the song of Bennett's life. Let's take all of these melodies together and let them caress our souls as we pause for a moment of silent prayer and reflection upon the memory, upon the song, upon the life of Bennett, Joan, Harmony, Nieberg. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. O God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand, that the pain which loss inflicts is the measure of a love stronger than death. Though we cry in the anguish of our hearts, may we be like children who know that their parent is near and who cling unafraid to the trusted hand. In the Spirit, O God, do we commit all that is precious to us to your keeping, as we repeat words hallowed by the generations. And I ask you to rise as you are able for the Kaddish memorial prayer. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divra cherute v'amlich malchute, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, bagala v'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulmei almaya. Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'la min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechemata. Tamiram v'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim. Aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimrumav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May God grant peace to all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us, as we say together as a holy community, amen. Lech ki shalchacha Adonai. Go your way, Bennett, for God has called you. Lech v'Adonai hiye imach. Go your way, and may God be with you. V'halach lefanecha tzidkecha, kavod Adonai ya'asvecha. Bennett, may your righteousness go before you, and the glory of God receive you. I'd now like to ask all of the friends that have gathered here to repeat these words after me, speaking them to the mourners. May God console you, with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Hamakom yenechem ethem b'toch sha'ar of Leit Zion Yerushalayim. Now go forth in peace to life. As we say together, Amen.
I know it's unusual.
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't have anything planned to say today, but sitting here with all of you, I thought I should share a little bit. Ben and I have always had a bit of a complicated relationship. We fought a lot, but we loved a lot too. And when we were really young, we were inseparable. And I was sitting here and I remembered the time where we had a giant plush of Elmo. And I was really excited about it, and they said, why don't we ride the Elmo down the stairs? And I thought this was the best idea. I was so excited, but I was still a little bit scared because I was really little and I didn't know how it would work out. And so they consoled me. They said, this is going to be good. This is going to be fun. I was sitting at the top of the stairs on the Elmo, and they gave me a guiding push down, down the stairs, and I made it maybe down 3 stairs before I face planted into the wall. And I was really mad at them. And I thought, like, how could they have convinced me to do this? But I think it was a gift of theirs that, they were very good at convincing me to do things. And even when we grew older and we started fighting more and we weren't as close as we were when we were little in the same way, they still included me and they still pushed me and pushed me to be more and to be a better person, but also pushed my buttons. And I think that is really how I'll remember them, as someone who pushed me to be better, and I'm gonna try to be better for them. Thanks.
Thank you, Finn, for that push. As we take that love and take Bennett's life to push us forward into the world to further Tikkun Olam, world repair. Lech Shalom, go in peace, and may God be with us all. Amen.
Christopher Robin and I walked along under branches lit up by the moon, posing our questions to Owl and Dior as our days disappeared all too soon. But I've wandered much further today than I should, and I can't seem to find my way back to the wood. So help me if you can, I've got to get back to the house at the corner by one. You'd be surprised, there's so much to be done. Count all the bees in the hive, chase all the clouds from the sky, back to the days of Christopher Robin and Hood. Winnie the Pooh doesn't know what to do, got a honey jar stuck on his nose. He came to me asking help and advice, and from here no one knows where he goes. So I sent him to ask the owl if he's there, how to loosen a jar from the nose of a bear. So help me if you can, I've got to get back to the house at the corner by one. You'd be surprised, there's so much to be done. Count all the bees in the hive, chase all the clouds from the sky, back to the days of Christopher Robin and Hood.
Gender reveal party where we cut open the cake and a swarm of angry bees.
Everyone is terrified and confused.
Gender reveal party where we ask everyone to bring pink and blue balloons and lots of cake. A crowd of balloons arrives.
Everyone is shocked. We are building a balloon arch of the trans flag for the Pride Parade. Our plan to break the gender binary has worked. We have all their cake and eat it too. Gender reveal party held at Mile High Stadium. We tell the guests that we replace pink with orange. They all show up at Mile High Stadium in blue and orange. It's game day. We hand them all cake.
When they ask about the child's gender, we tell them we have no idea what they're talking about.
We finally got their friends to go to the game with us. Gender reveal party with the Jurassic Park theme. We spent so much time concerned about whether or not we could pull off the party, we didn't think about whether or not we should. Gender reveal party except protect your close friends and family and attract audience of angry, judgmental jerks. I like how my shirt revealed that my boobs are actually a dynamite vest. Gender reveal party where the cake is actually a block of wood covered in frosting. We stab the knife down into the cake. And it sticks.
The future child's gender will not release the knife.
Oh God, the child has a knife!
Reveal party held in your office. We fall so far into it that we just crash into Narnia.
It's mostly just a bunch of furries masturbating to each other. Gender reveal party! Where no gender is ever revealed! I just screamed! Gender!
Cowboy,
What did I say?
lives on the range.
Gender!
His horse and his cattle with his own lead.
In the middle of
is in the saddle and it's waiting for someone is past
The party attacks him with pink and blue machetes and uses entrails to spell out the words "fuck gender" on the wall.
That's no rises, the six by his fire. Thinking about women and glasses of beer. Close his eyes as the goatee retires. Sings our song with his
That the gender will be revealed by a scavenger. We spend hours searching for hidden objects and find nothing. At the end, we tell them we never even hit anything. There's nothing to hide. David singing or something that doesn't make sense, and that was true of
These greens and blues are the colors I choose. Won't you let me go down in my dreams and rock her by sweet baby James? Now the 1st of December was covered with snow. So was the turnpike from Stockbridge to Boston. Lord, the Berkshires seemed dreamlike on account of that frosting. With 10 miles behind me and 10,000 more to go. There's a song that they sing when they take to the highway, a song that they sing when they take to the sea, a song that they sing of their home in the sky. Maybe you can believe it if it helps you to sleep, but singing works just fine for me. So good night, you moonlight ladies, rock-a-bye, sweet baby Jane. Deep greens and blues are the colors I choose. Won't you let me go down in my dreams and rock-a-bye, sweet baby Jane?
Joy is over there in her incredible clothes. She had silver silk shimmering down to her toes. I was doing the best that I can, I suppose, but that little girl dancer eventually grows. She grows. You can't imagine all the times that I tried to uncover the source of the tears that you cried. Let's throw it away and just go for a ride. And you'd say okay, but you'd keep it inside. And I tried, I tried, I tried, I tried. We want you to be happy. Don't live inside the gloom. We want you to be happy. Come step outside your room. We want you to be happy, 'cause this is your song too. I never thought I could have it so good. You were the song that my soul understood. But time is a river that flows through the woods, and it led us to places we both understood would be gone before too long, would be gone before too long. When we were young, we thought life was a game, but then somebody leaves you and you're never the same. All of the places and people belong to the puzzle, but one of the pieces is gone, and it's you. It's you. It's you. Joy, it's you. We want you to be happy. Don't live inside the gloom. We want you to be happy. Come step outside your room. We want you to be happy,
called out of class for 20 minutes, or 30 minutes, or an hour, I'm not really sure. Time is an adjacent concern to the embarrassment I am convincing myself is excitement. Today, we will play with Legos, or the car game that is like Tetris but somehow more frustrating and I can never win. Today, we will play with Silly Putty, or we will look at that oversized cardstock feelings chart on the wall that is yellowing at the corners, and I will say, I feel like the worms I pluck from the ground with the boys at recess, or I will say, I feel like the boys at recess, but I won't say that. When I walk home, the boys at the bottom of my street will tell me I cannot ride a bike because I am a girl. This is all beside the point. We are here to talk about my fingers and what the boys will think of them. We are here because my hands are bleeding and this stale office is the closest thing we have to gauze. Today I will cheat at the car game, where I will throw my Legos across the room at that dumb gray fabric wall full of pictures from a National Geographic magazine, and maybe we are not just here because of my nervous hands, or maybe the beast that peels the skin off my fingers with his teeth until I bleed is now playing finger puppet with my whole body, or maybe we are here because I am playing with no one at recess with the worms. Either way, I'm excited. Either way, I get to leave class and have a whole 20 minutes, or 30 minutes, or an hour just to me and Miss Feel and my bloody fingers bitten raw in the face on the floppy feelings chart that looks angry but only at itself. Today, I did not go to the principal's office for throwing a crayon at Miles, or for throwing a chair at Allison, or for throwing a tantrum. Today, she will give me Silly Putty and I will go back to class and flaunt it like a first place prize. Worms will run out of my hands, slippery as humiliation, pale and red in the cheeks. I'm really used to reading at Slam Things and because I was named a daughter, as if my queerness has been a thing folded small inside me, something I have been too afraid to open too wide for fear of making too much noise. A singing birthday card opened in a silent morgue, a place I left for dead because I lacked the language to say there is something between life and living. I am the placebo effect of a perfect life, the ability to afford the privacy of shame and the confinement of large spaces. I want someone to sing to me like my father when he still believed I was a child. I want to know how to hold a mirror to old film and re-expose it so the light shines through where my innocence ran out. I want you to explain to me again closeness, how intimacy should be a bonding exercise with myself. I want how selfish to feel desire for a morning I have created, for a song they tried to give me as a name, Shira Liat, for one letter separating me from gender.
Yeah!
Manhattan closed its eyes for the first time, and it was as delicate as watching a butterfly's wings quiver open. Manhattan took off its makeup and yawned. I am not afraid of the dark. In fact, I am out to dinner with a man probably 20-something years older. He is a painter and isn't that romantic. The buses have all sped away from the city like it is bleeding out, but it's too dark to see. The subways are coughing up wet lungs. The city has taken a sick day, and I am not afraid of being young, and I am not afraid of how short my skirt is, and I let him buy me dinner and find ignorance or innocence, but I know damn well Manhattan is a string of crushed Christmas lights in his palm, and doesn't that seem dangerous? And I have no way to get home, but I am not afraid. I have the stupid arrogance of a girl taught the currency of her body. It pays for the cab ride back to Grand Central. Thank God I got lucky this time. There were still trains running. Woo.
Marching up some mountain with her, complaining, high and smiling, cheap drink, dark and violet, full of butterflies, the violet tenderness. silent, the clay you find is fortified. We felt unfocused fade, the line, the sugar rush, the constant hush, the pushing of the water gush, the marching band when April ran, my June bugs fly and push your gin Jacob with the tired wiry brandy look. Here we go round Mary in your famous storybook. We overcome the sirens, we look both left and right, and I can feel the numbness accompany my plight, and I know that someday soon I'll see you, but now you're out of sight, and you kiss me like you used to in the January night. What did you tell me, Mary, when you were there, so sweet and very full of field and stars you carried all of time? Oh, in heavens, when you looked at me, your eyes were like machinery, your hands were making artifacts in the corner of my mind. Monastery, monochrome, boom, balloon, machine and all, diamond rings and gutter bombs, marching up the mountain with our aching planet, high and smiling, cheap drink, dark and violet, full of butterflies, the violent tenderness, the sweetest silent, the clay you find is fortified. We felt unfocused fade, the line, the sugar rush, the constant hush, the pushing of the water gush, the marching band when April ran, they June hands.